Hello, everyone, and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 665. 665. January the 17th, 2019, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Unbelievable day today. No way I can get to all the massive stories that are breaking today. It's probably going to take me 3 or 4 days to get caught up just on what happened today. So I'm going to do the best I can to just hit on a couple of these topics, cover the rest of the important things, and over the next 3 or 4 days, hopefully we'll be able to get through the other things that are going to take some time, you might say. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's talk about the main topic of the day, which is battling leakers. Battling leakers. Clearly, there's a battle going on for leaking. We get this article that comes out on Sunday in the New York Times, which makes the fourth attempt at telling us why the investigation into Trump occurred. And of course, the New York Times is saying it's because, Trump fired Comey, basically, which was obstructing the investigation being carried out by Comey, which was going to expose Trump as being a Russian spy. Okay, so when the dossier didn't work and they go to Papadopoulos and that didn't work, they go back to the dossier. Then they talk about obstruction. Now they're back with obstruction, and they're using the Comey firing in the New York Times. And that is followed up. The very next 3 days, we get two major leaks of witness testimony from the hearings that were conducted by the House Oversight and Judiciary Committees, the Joint Committee in Congress, and also in the House Intelligence Committee with Devin Nunes. And these are somewhat targeted leaks, and that's why we know that it's kind of a battle going on. And we don't really know who's leaking to Jeff Carlson or the New York Times, because they typically, what they'll do is they won't necessarily release the entire transcript. Of course, that would be rather lengthy because these are 1 and 2 day hearings, which last hours and hours and hours, will probably be hundreds of pages. What they typically do is they digest the information, they read it all, and then tell you what they learn from reading the testimony. And then at various times, they'll give you exact, Q&As, questions and answers from the witness and the questioner when they want to highlight a specific point. And we see this with almost all leaks, whether they come from the deep state or whether they go to Jeff Carlson, probably coming from white hats. Many people are suggesting Mark Meadows. I've heard Devin Nunes or someone on his staff. I doubt they leak these things directly. They give them to someone on their staff and have them leak them or something like that. So clearly, the response to the New York Times story on Sunday was the leaks of the two most recent leaks that have occurred in the last 24 hours or so, the leaked testimony of Bruce Orr and Papadopoulos. Now, I read through, gave a quick scan through the Bruce Orr and took some notes. Did not have time to even read through the Papadopoulos. These are long articles with a lot of detailed information. That's why I say it will take me several days to read both of these and write down and take all the notes I'm going to take and expand on the points. It's going to take some time, but I will get through both Papadopoulos and Bruce Orr. I think by Sunday we will have covered all the information. If you want to read them for yourself, you can go on over to Epoch Times and read them for yourself. So that's what's going on. We have these battling leakers, but it's good to know there's some white hats leaking to Carlson. He's a good man to leak to because he has a good reputation with people who've been following the Spygate story. We know that he's pretty much, on our team. He's certainly not on the left. He's certainly not even trying to play the middle of the road. He's just being a good reporter and reporting the facts, and he sees pretty much the facts pretty much the way most of us do, which is that there was an attempted coup. That's pretty much the point of view he comes from. So someone else who leaked that to him has to know that. They definitely leaked it to a friendly. Let's put it that way. And I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Nunes or someone on his staff or Meadows or Jordan, or I don't know who it was. But someone's obviously of the white hat category leaking stories to Carlson to counter the deep state leaks to the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CNN, and people like that. So now we have an active battle going on between leakers to try to build credibility for their side. So I expect that this is going to continue now since it's already began. I don't see any reason why it would stop. So I think we'll expect more leaks in the coming days. But there's just so much stuff to cover. So I just scanned. I haven't read the Papaglopoulos at all. I just looked at it. Just scanned down the page. Really didn't hardly read anything. Maybe the first paragraph. Too much, too long for me to get to. But I did read through the whole Bruce Orr, and I took some notes from the first part of it. There'll be more to come on this, but just some things that we learned really quickly from the leaked testimony of Bruce Orr. So we learned from this leak of the testimony of Bruce Orr that Bruce Orr says that his direct contact was with Joe Pientka. Joe Pientka. He's also the individual who was with Peter Benstrokinis when they interviewed Michael Flynn. As you know, there have been two or three different congressional committees trying to interview Pientka. They have refused to provide Pientka to any of these congressional committees for him to be interviewed. And I understand that even Horowitz, Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz, has not been able to interview Mr. Pientka. They're protecting him for some reason. Now, I think we have a pretty good idea why. Because up until now, we've only talked about Joe Pientka in relation to the Michael Flynn interview with Peter Benstrokinis. But now we know from Bruce Orr that his personal contact, or what he describes as his handler, his FBI handler, was Pientka. And who was it that assigned Pientka to be the handler for Bruce Orr? Peter Benstrokinis and Lisa Page. Do you remember in the hearings with Peter Benstrokinis where he was asked if he ever met with Bruce Orr? And he said no. You see, no, he didn't meet with Bruce Orr, even though that's a lie, because we actually have Bruce Orr in here saying he did attend at least one meeting with Benstrokinis, was present, and Lisa Page, and others. We'll get to that. But for the time being, on this point, it was Bruce Orr is basically saying in this interview that it was Peter Benstrokinis and Lisa Page that tapped Bruce Orr to be the handler for Bruce Orr. For Pientka to meet with Orr to get the information and the documents and to give that information to Benstrokinis, Lisa Page, probably McCabe. So Pientka was the middleman, not just the guy sitting in on the interview with Flynn taking notes, but he was deeply involved in that stuff going on where Bruce Orr was feeding information to the FBI. And he was, of course, was meeting with Steele and Glenn Simpson. And, of course, he was married to his wife, who was involved as well. And he was providing information from her to them as well. So, that's fairly bombshell. And that's probably the major reason why they didn't want Pientka being interviewed. Not because of what he may have noted in the Michael Flynn interviews, but because they might discover the key role he played in the issue with Bruce Orr providing information to the FBI. He was the handler for Mr. Orr. Bruce Orr says that he didn't know of the contents of the files, the flash drives, the memory sticks from Steele or his wife Nellie, while he was acting as a liaison between Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, and his handler, FBI handler Joe Pientka, who was reporting directly to Peter Benstrokinis. Pientka was reporting directly to Peter Benstrokinis. So here we have Bruce Orr. We know that he passed, on a number of occasions, he passed memory sticks, flash drives, and files in some form to Pientka, given to him by Christopher Steele, Glenn Simpson, and also his wife, Nellie Orr. Now, does anyone believe that Bruce Orr wasn't the least bit curious what was on those memory sticks or anything else? He denies knowing what was on those various pieces of equipment, but he says he has a pretty good idea it was probably about the dossier, but that he never actually looked at any of the information on the flash drives, memory sticks, or hard files. He never looked at it. He just passed it along. I believe that. I don't think that the people questioning him believe that. Very hard to believe that he wouldn't have looked at that stuff. But that's what he's claiming, is that he did not look at that stuff. And here we have Glenn Simpson now caught in another lie. Because Glenn Simpson, when asked, said that he only met with Bruce Orr after the presidential election, after November 8th. But here we can clearly see that this was all happening in prior to the November 8th. This is all happening September, October, maybe even as early as late August. So here we have Glenn Simpson caught again for about the second or third time lying to Congress about when he was meeting with Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele and others. Bruce Orr said he wasn't aware that Fusion GPS was working with the Clinton campaign and the DNC, but he knew that they were somehow associated with the Clinton campaign. Yeah. Again, that's very hard to believe. Very, very hard to believe. He's married to Nellie. He knows who Nellie's working for. He's talking to Christopher Steele. He's talking to Glenn Simpson. And yet, we're supposed to believe that he never is told that any of these people are actually working for the Clinton campaign. Who the hell did he think all this work was being done for? He couldn't have thought it was the FBI. Otherwise, why would he be in the role he's in? Why would he be getting people like Glenn Simpson of Confusion GPS, a company that does political opposition research and for politicians? He's talking to Christopher Steele, who Steele's told Bruce Orr that he hates Trump and wants to stop him. Yet all this going on, and it never dawns on Bruce Orr, or no one ever tells Bruce Orr that they're working directly for Clinton. Here he is, a crime investigator, and he doesn't have the resources or even the thought of mind to be a bit curious about what this is all about and where it's coming from. He would never even ask the question, who you working for? I find this, again, very hard to believe. This is Bruce Orr basically lying. I just find these things hard to believe. He cannot be that naive and be someone that high up in the DOJ who investigates, prior to this, was investigating all sorts of organized crime, international organized crime. You not get to be the number one, number two, number three guy at the DOJ investigating international organized crime and be a complete, be a non-curious person and be a person who apparently has no common sense or investigative curiosity. But that's what we have to believe Bruce Orr right here. That he's just some naive individual who got taken in. I find this very hard to believe. But that's what he's claiming. Bruce Orr admits that he did meet with Peters Ben Strokinus. How about that? Because Peters Ben Strokinus said in those hearings he never met with Bruce Orr. But Bruce Orr says he did meet with Peters Ben Strokinus, Lisa Page, and some people at the DOJ Criminal Division. He gave them information from both Christopher Steele and Glenn Simpson. He met with Strzok and Page and people from the DOJ Criminal Division and gave them information, and we can assume that means flash drives, memory sticks, what have you, hard documents, gave them to information he got from Simpson and Steele, which he gave to these individuals, Strzok and Page, and the DOJ criminal lawyers there, gave them this information directly in a meeting, at least once. Or was asked, have you ever been in your career, have you ever before in your career inserted yourself in the chain of custody into an investigation that you were conducting or were a part of? That's exactly right. Great question. He essentially placed himself in the chain of evidence, the chain of custody of the evidence. He became a person who was a source of evidence in the case that he was supposed to be But he wasn't really investigating it. He's an outside player. He's supposed to be investigating international organized crime. He was never brought into the investigation by Comey or Strzok or anyone else. I imagine we'll find out later how he was brought into this, but I had to have something to do with the fact that he's married to Nellie, and she's working on this. If I says, hey, my husband's a number 4 guy over at the DOJ. It's probably how it happened. But the answer to his question the question that was asked of him is no. Never in his career has he ever inserted himself into the chain of custody into an investigation that he was conducting or was a part of. No, he's never done it before. Another first. Another first. Of which there are many. So, that's pretty much where I cut off. As you can see, there's a lot of killer information here. And that was just in the first couple paragraphs. It's a long article. I have much more to go on Bruce Orr to get to the bottom of that. Then I'll begin working on the Papagalopoulos. And that'll probably take 2 days to cover. A lot there as well. Very long story. A lot of information. Which we've covered a lot of it, but I'm sure there's some things we haven't covered. So we will get back to that and follow up with that tomorrow, the next day, until we finally get it all covered. But that's what we've learned so far. Absolutely amazing. Now let's get on to some other news of the day. Let's see. Kirsten Gillibrand was on the Stephen Colbert show, and she announced that her intention to run for president. She's weak. She's very weak. She's going nowhere. I don't think she'll ever get out of even the 5% range because she's immediately going to try to move into the Rotten Reverend Clinton territory, which won't make Rotten Reverend Clinton very happy, and I imagine that she'll get the sabotage treatment just the same way Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, Hillary's already launched her goons onto Gabbard, and I imagine she'll do the same to Gillibrand. And the Clintons are not really happy with Gillibrand because when the Me Too movement came up, Gillibrand came out and said publicly that Bill Clinton should have been held more accountable for his behavior, and the Clintons didn't very much like that. Now, Gillibrand, the very first place that she is going is to the establishment money people, the same people that Hillary gets her money from. She's going to Hillary's money people. That's exactly the first place she's going. She also broke her pledge. When she ran for Senate, she said she would serve the full 6 years. She's broken that pledge. She also is changing her position on immigration policy just 1 day after announcing that her intentions are to run for president. She now says that she thinks that illegals should not be able to get a driver's license. She believes in immigration policy reform all of a sudden. And she's also going out and cozying up to these feminist groups that were a huge part of Hillary's boots on the ground campaign. The people who make phone calls and knock on doors. She's trying to hijack part of Hillary's show. Whereas you see Elizabeth Warren, she immediately went to the left. And she's going after Bernie Sanders type people. We can see here that Kirsten Gillibrand is cutting out her niche to try to move into the type of people who are supporting the Rotten Reverend. That's who she thinks she's going to replace. But my guess is the Rotten Reverend Clinton has her own ideas about that. Then we get Madam Botox, Nancy Pelosi, sending a letter to the White House suggesting that they postpone the State of the Union address because the Secret Service is not able to provide adequate protection for members while the government is on shutdown. Ha ha ha! That's funny. She's a nut. She's a nut. First of all, the Secret Service is demanding an apology from Pelosi because they state that she never contacted them to ask them about this and that they would never give her the answer that she apparently thinks that she has, which is they say they're perfectly capable of performing all their duties, providing protection for the president, members of Congress, and anyone else for the State of the Union, just like they always do, and that this is really silliness. And it is. It's just more bullshit from Madam Botox. She's nuts. She's nuts. Trump will laugh at this. And the Secret Service is demanding an apology. In France, police are now using non-lethal riot control weapons. I don't know what a non-lethal riot control weapon is, other than rubber bullets. to gun down the yellow vest protesters like rabbits. There are many injuries being reported. We're now in week 9. It's being reported that there's some turncoats working behind the scenes right now as we speak. They would be the following: Lindsey Graham, Collins, Rob Portman. I can tell you all about him. He's an Ohio senator. He's a bad anti-Trump, never-Trumper, turncoat for sure. And, of course, Lamar Alexander, who I wouldn't trust as far as I could throw. They are working behind the scenes with Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, and Chris Coons to come up with a plan that they say they're hoping Trump will sign to get the government reopened. The problem is that their plan is to have Trump reopen the government, and then these individuals will sit down and work out a plan for some immigration reform. No way the president's stupid enough to follow for that. That's the same damn thing they did to Reagan. Go ahead and sign on to give an amnesty to millions of illegals, and we'll get that wall built. The wall never got built, and tens of millions of illegals were made illegal. Don't fall for that one, Trump. I'm sure he won't. He's not that stupid. But here you can see they're trying to get the government reopened, but not by resolving the issue, but by getting Trump just to reopen the government on the promise that they'll sit down between these people and hammer out a deal which will, solve the problem. No way. If I'm Trump, I say, I'll tell you what, how about this? You guys sit down and work out the deal, and when you get it done, you come and talk to me. Make sure there's $5.7 billion in there for my wall. Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg has canceled another speech, and this one here is scheduled for the 29th of January. That is, 2 weeks from now? So if she doesn't think she's going to be well enough to speak in 2 weeks from now, she must not be feeling very good today. I don't think she's ever coming back to the Supreme Court. That's my opinion. I think she's probably at Fort Meade or somewhere, hooked up to a bunch of machines. They're using some sort of experimental medication. She's probably already dead, and they're probably just keeping her alive, just keeping her heart beating until 2020. They'll keep her on dry ice if they have to. Federal agents have arrested a jihadist for trying to carry out a bomb plot against the White House. They found explosives, an anti-tank rocket, a floor plan of the West Wing, which is where the president's office is, and they learned about this guy from an informant. Someone informed on him. So there you go, a jihadist trying to blow up the White House. Well done. Well, we have an 8-time deported illegal, 8 times previously deported illegal, has been caught with $850,000 worth of coke and meth in his vehicle. Brandon Stroika, who was the originator, the founder of the Walk Away movement, is going to be releasing a video documentary on Sunday called The Great Awakening. The Great Awakening. I urge you all to watch it. I'm sure I'll be looking out for it, and if I have time around looking into all these other things, I'll try to watch it myself. I'm sure I will at some point. I actually like that guy. He's a very straight-up dude, and he's doing a valuable service. An honest lefty who saw the light. 4 U.S. soldiers were killed and 3 were wounded in an attack in Syria. ISIS is claiming responsibility. I'm sure that was arranged by John Bolton and the Israeli Mossad and some Saudi intelligence people. They'll be doing a lot of this sort of thing to prove to Trump that there's still too many ISIS in Syria for us to pull out. I wonder how many U.S. soldiers they'll kill and wound in an effort to generate more war. Many months ago, I reported on this Russian prostitute named Nastya. I shit you not. I'm not making this up. This is her name. Nastya, Nastya, Nastya Rybka. She's a former Russian prostitute. Nastya Rybka, which means little fish. Little fish. So, little fish, Nastya Rybka, the former Russian prostitute, if you remember when I was reporting on the story was that she had been thrown in jail in Thailand with a friend of hers. They had been sent to Thailand and they were working essentially on a business venture with Oleg Deripaska. I guess she was one of his prostitutes or something. And what they were doing was they were giving classes, teaching people, having seminars, teaching women how to attract wealthy oligarchs. So they were arrested in Thailand and given like 2 or 3 years in jail. Well, now it appears that they've just received a suspended sentence and time served, which has been about 9 months. They apparently will be fined $3,000 and sent back to Russia. But if you remember, what made this a story was the fact that Rybka had made claims that she had information on Trump-Russia collusion. And because she is a known associate, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it, of Deripaska, that gave her some credibility. And then she fell off the radar screen. Now, Gateway Pundit is suggesting that it may have been Mueller, Uncle Bob the Executioner, who may be behind getting her sentence suspended or what have you, getting her out of jail so that they can use her or at least question her or interrogate her or whatever, try to get her to sing a tune, which shouldn't be too hard, to help make their case for Trump-Russia collusion. Now, I was watching the hearings the other day, and I don't know how many of you caught this question by Blumenthal, but now I think I see where Uncle Bob may be trying to go, because he knows that Trump-Russia failed. He knows that direct obstruction by firing Comey won't sell. So now it appears there's something else, and I think that information has been leaked to, or someone's advised Blumenthal, because of a series of questions that he was drilling down on when he was talking to Barr, when he was asking questions to Barr. And essentially, he was asking Barr about some legal specifics about whether or not it's a crime, or he would view it as a crime or obstruction, if the target of an investigation, he means Trump, were trying to get a witness to falsify testimony. You know what Uncle Bob's doing to what's his name, Corsi. So in other words, Blumenthal was really drilling down on this. So it leads me to believe that what Uncle Bob is actually trying to pursue right now is he's trying to prove that Trump, in some way, was trying to influence witnesses, people Uncle Bob has interviewed, into not telling the truth or covering up something. And my guess is that's what they've been trying to bust Manafort's balls over. That's what they were trying to bust Stone's balls over. That's what they've been trying to bust a lot of people's balls over, is to try to get them to say that Trump tried to somehow influence their testimony. And this is where Blumenthal was drilling down, and this is probably the last ditch for Uncle Bob to try to get Trump, is to find someone who will say, maybe Cohen or someone else, yeah, Trump was trying to influence me to get me to change my testimony. You know, the same thing that Bill Clinton was found guilty of when he tried to get Monica Lewinsky to lie to Ken Starr. Who is John Dunham? D-U-N-H-A-M. Who is John Dunham? Anybody know? Does that name ring a bell? John Dunham. John Dunham is the #1 prosecutor in the state of Connecticut. He was nominated by Trump and confirmed in 2018. Not too recently, not too long ago. He specializes in taking down mobsters and corrupt federal officials. His specialty. He's known for his toughness and his discretion. How do we know about him? We know about him because when Meadows and Gates and Ratcliffe and others, Gowdy and others, were interviewing General Counsel James Baker, there was a series of questions they began to ask, and Baker's lawyer said, "I'm sorry, he cannot answer those questions." When they pressed him on why Baker could not answer them questions, he said it was because his client, Mr. Baker, was already under an investigation, an ongoing investigation within the Department of Justice regarding leaking. Meadows and Jordan and those guys were like, "Really? You mean the Horowitz thing?" No, not Horowitz. Then what investigation are you talking about? They pressed him until this lawyer for Baker said, well, his name is John Durham. He's a prosecutor in Connecticut who is investigating my client, Mr. Baker, for leaking. No one has heard of Mr. Durham before, but it appears that he's the top prosecutor in the state of Connecticut who specializes in prosecuting mobsters and corrupt federal officials, and he is currently and has been investigating, has an open case investigating Baker, who was the general counsel of the FBI, the general counsel to Comey and McCabe. Now, I don't know if he's the guy handling the McCabe investigation or not, but we know for a fact he is now investigating Baker. But maybe he's investigating a lot more than Baker. This lawyer didn't say that he's only investigating his client, Mr. Baker. He just said that his client is being investigated by Durham, which means it's very likely that Durham is looking into a lot more than just Baker. Probably looking at McCabe, Comey, Page, Strzok, and a whole bunch of people. Maybe this is what Trump knows. Trump nominated him in 2018. He was confirmed, and now he's in control of this investigation. Maybe that's what Trump meant. That those mysterious notes at the Bush funeral, these recent statements by Trump to Judge Jeanine, and this information, when all three put together, signals that there just might be something going on. There's something going on. Boom, 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 boom. There's something going on. Remember that song by Agnetha with what's his name? It was an 80s hit after she left ABBA. Something going on. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, let's move on with the last 2 minutes we have. A lot of people going, crazy over the 2 days of testimony of Barr. People on the, you have MSNBC freaking out because they think he's going to be a Trump puppet. He's going to investigate all these things. You got people like my good friend H.A. Goodman, who thinks that Barr is the man. He's going to go in and just blow it all wide open. You have all kinds of things going on out there. And my take on Barr, I didn't see every minute of every hearing, but just from what I saw, it appeared to me that Barr told everybody what they wanted to hear. He told the Democrats that Rosenstein and Mueller are great guys. He knows Mueller very well. They're very close. They're good friends. He thinks they're both great guys. Doesn't think Mueller would do a witch hunt. Said he's not going to interfere with the Mueller investigation or anything like that. At the same time, he told Lindsey Graham and a couple Republicans that he's going to look into the dossier, the FISA warrants, Strzok and Page, the text, the corruption, blah, 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 blah. So he really told everybody what they wanted to hear. I expect what he'll do is a whole bunch of nothing. I hope he surprises me. I hope he surprises me and really does investigate something. But my guess is he's just going to be another more high-profile version of Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz. He'll be there to wallpaper over the bumps and the cracks in the wall. He may throw a few small fish to be sacrificed, but ultimately he will try to protect the integrity of the DOJ, which he loves. Everyone's looking forward to video number 666, but I'm not going to do a video 666. It freaks me out. So there won't be a video 666. I will do a video tomorrow, but it's going to be 667. We're going to skip the 666 and go right to 667. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate y'all, and I'll be back tomorrow for more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.